Yes, I say. And he was a heavy smoker. Yes, up to 80 a day. That's pretty heavy. But he did give up 20 years before the end. That's not what killed him. And she says, he was very good at dancing. Well, I say, he was the Pennsylvania State Jitterbug Champion of 1939. True. And you were with him during his demise. Yes, but not at the very end. And he drove heavy vehicles. No! Well, yes. But when he was on strike, she says, he says he enjoyed that more than his regular job. Really? I say. Yes, and he's telling me he never understood you while he lived, but he does now. He gets it, and he's incredibly proud of you. I'm tearing up by now. She goes on, remorselessly, as though something really urgent needs to be expressed. She says, he has a small boy with him, and he says to tell you that the boy is okay. He says to tell you that, is it Timmy? Tony? Stop right there, I blub. But of course, by now, the whole room is focused on this scene like vultures over carrion, and they are in it. Tommy, I say. The boy's name was Tommy. He would have been my older brother by a year, but he died an infant. She says, your father says not to worry about the boy, that he's fine and he's happy and they're together. He says he loves you, and he says to say that you're brave or tough. And I start to howl at this point because these were his last words to me. He's also saying, she says, not to grieve him anymore. He loves you, and you'll all be together someday. So tell me, my friends, should I be deeply, deeply grateful to this stranger for a great gift? Or should I be outraged at her for playing on my sense of loss? Who's bats here? Her? Me? Both? All of us? As I say, I am aware of the tricks, the leading questions, the deductions of personality from bits of telling information. I also know that, like, if you read someone the wrong horoscope, that is the horoscope that's not theirs, they'll always take it to be prescient anyway. I know all this. But this woman, this meek little woman, got me leaving the door open to the possibility of an afterlife. Now, this is not something I've put much faith in since my lapse in Catholicism. Hardly any at all. Despite the sober science on the subject that might point to something like a universal after-death experience. Maybe you've read these books, you know, the floating above your body thing, the tunnel and the light, and the welcome by long-dead loved ones. On the other hand, this could be a reliving of the birth experience, you know, the tunnel and the light that increases. People who are cesarean-born seem not to have this experience. It's just, the skeptic says, the way the brain maps the unfamiliarity of itself dying to its nearest equivalent experience, the deeply buried memory of the birth trauma. So if you die and then come back, you weren't really actually totally dead to begin with. So again, there's an absence of reliable evidence. But does that mean that life after death ain't so? I can't shake how she knew some details. So many details. Because the truth is, I want it to be so. Like the X-Files, I want to believe. But I also want to be right. This is a dicey balance. And I suppose if I'm honest with myself, I'd say at this point that I neither believe nor disbelieve. The experience was compelling, it was deeply affecting, but it was to do with fleeting impressions. It was more art than science. So with the absence of really solid evidence of my father and brother's presence, but a sense that the medium's art was somehow generally on target, or at least around it, I choose to leave the door open. To close the door would be to say, I'm sure, one way or the other. And the fact is, I'm just not sure. Do we somehow drag our immediate ancestors around with us by missing them? Unwilling to let them go? That wherever we are, they are there too, because they're in us, consubstantial with us, having been part of our lives? Do I conjure my father by missing him? Maybe, as the poem says, a house can be haunted by those who were never there if there was where they are missed. I never even met my brother, but it would be safe to say that he has haunted me. My parents called him Tommy, but that was to spare my feelings. His real name was Robert, and I was born to replace him. How much more haunted by someone can you get? Furthermore, I have also never, ever, not once in my life seen what I'd take to be a ghost. Though in the UK, I lived in some very, very old houses that should by rights have been haunted. But my down-to-earth, no-nonsense, rational wife, Susan, who I remind you is a PhD-bearing intellectual with a real and important job-type job, has seen one and makes no bones about it. She saw it at the foot of the bed in a rented house in Queensland that she later found out was well known by the estate agent and by the neighbors as, quote, the haunted house. She's in no doubt about what she saw, nor was anyone else who ever lived there. When we visited the States not long ago, we visited my younger brother, my living brother, who's not stupid, but, also not a Rhodes Scholar. She got Sue hooked on a cable TV reality show called Ghost Hunters, or TAPS, the Atlantic Paranormal Society. I see some grins of recognition out there. And so pretty much when your wife's a vegetarian, it pretty much means you're a vegetarian too. I've also been fed a regular diet of this show, and I'm getting a bit hooked. Not because it's sensationalistic, far from it, but because it's so damn plausible. It works like this. Here are these two real guys in Rhode Island, and they have real day jobs as real plumbers. After hours, they've used their considerable income from unblocking drains. I mean, when was the last time you saw a poor plumber? To set up a paranormal investigation business on the side, requiring heaps of scientific media, electromagnetic field meters, wide-frequency digital recording devices, thermal imaging cameras, and so on and so forth. They get called out by people experiencing something unexplainable, hence paranormal. And to their immense credit, they begin by attempting to debunk every detail of that experience that's reported. For example, a distinct intermittent knocking turns out to be a sump pump turning itself on, and the unsecured pipework leading out of it knocks against a beam. Not ghosts, just plumbing problems, which these guys are especially adept at finding. Mysterious lights in a room turn out to be a reflection through a window of out-of-sight car lights off the town water tank. Plumbing again. Strange, shadowy figures turn out to be damp patches on the wall visible only under certain lighting conditions. You get the idea. Usually the paranormal turns out to be disappointingly normal. But sometimes, when they've eliminated all the possible normal natural causes for a reported paranormal phenomenon, some anomalies remain unresolved, despite their common sense and wholly rational and methodical attempt to debunk them. They refrain usually from calling these things hauntings, but they have to grudgingly admit that there's something paranormal happening here. This, to me, shows great respect for saying only what you know to be true and nothing more. So some evidence of paranormality, or at least the absence of evidence of normality, hangs in there, frustratingly marginal but undeniable. Things like, for example, wild localized fluctuations in the electromagnetic field that isn't being produced by the building's electrical grid or appliances, all of which, by the way, are routinely turned off at the breakers. The received wisdom in paranormal research is that pockets of high electromagnetic field readings is evidence of a presence trying to manifest itself by drawing energy from the environment to make contact. And so it is with patches of cold air picked up by thermal imaging cameras. Again, it's an attempt by a presence to draw energy from the air in order to manifest itself.